Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. I have so much to talk about with my guest today. I'm so excited. Oh, I forget to advertise for myself. Patreon is up. Please join the $3, $15 level. There was supposed to be a free level, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. Whole tarot and psychic development. So anyways, on to my guest. My guest today, Mimi Young. First of all, Mimi, thank you for coming on. Let's start there.
Thank you so much for having me.
And your website is fantastic.
Thank you.
I just want to say that right off the bat. It is beautiful. It is fascinating. It is interesting. And then after I met you, I was looking at it and I did not even know where to start. We have so many things to chat about, including the Enter the Yin thing you have coming up. When is that coming up?
That's on Winter Solstice Day. So it'll be on December 21st in the evening, so 6 to 8 p.m. PST. It's online. I'll be providing an opportunity for us to gather as a circle and also to provide a group I Ching reading. So we'll be looking into what 2022 will be bringing us. And it'll just be a really great way to also just... And that's why I titled it Enter the Yin, is to really enter into a space of receptivity. And we could even if it's just temporarily, deactivate some of that overabundant yang energy that so many of us are accustomed tapping into, and just slow down.
That is the truth. I mean, because even now, even when I was calling you, you're like, she's all over the place. You're probably thinking that. But yes, I feel like the COVID, the lockdown and everything slowed us down, but it didn't really, because as soon as everything opened up, I'm moving at double time.
Oh, totally. It's like we're making up for lost time in a sense.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous.
It isn't sustainable, and it's not super healthy to do that long term.
Fantastic. Now you offer so many things here that I'm fascinated by, and I'm just gonna start. I want to read one paragraph. I don't ever read anything, but I want to read one paragraph from the front of your page so people will see where we're starting. And Ceremonie is you're going to have to help me. WOC owned, woman of color owned brand focused on imparting ancient and practical wisdom so you can actively receive support from spirit allies and healing energies, break negative patterns, and celebrate your path. And this is through magic, shamanism, and the occult. Tell me, how did you get started? This is like a huge encyclopedia of stuff that you do. How did your journey begin?
I would say it begun probably when I was born. I mean, one of my earliest memories would be hanging out with plants and communicating with them. And then by the time you make it into, let's say, middle school, you realize that that's kind of not the normal way to operate, and you learn to hide it, right?
Right.
And then, you couple that also with, around that time was when my mother converted from Buddhism, which was a fairly animistic approach to Buddhism, into evangelical Christianity. So all the more stuff kind of had to go underground for me, just as a way to feel safe and accepted by her. And I even attended church for a number of years, and further really silencing that part of me. And so it kind of did go dormant for a while, even though there would always be things that I would experience that was really just quite supernatural or paranormal, however you want to describe it. One example would be I have this gift called clarofactance, or some people call it clarifaction. And then, layperson's term would be psychic smelling. And I would smell things, and eventually I got to understand what they meant. And oftentimes there are warnings or reminders. And sometimes they're just practical reminders, like, Mimi, you didn't turn off the stove, like, go turn off the stove, that type of thing before I leave the house. And yeah, so that was happening all throughout my teens and adulthood. And it wasn't until me being a mother where I really decided to step away from church culture and the hiding of oneself. And I re-embraced all who I am.
Wow.
So, it took a while to come to that full circle.
I have a question on the psychic smell. This is there's an interesting thing going on with me, and you're probably the perfect person to ask. I believe that this is that it's a sort of, how we think like clairaudient is just one voice that someone is saying, someone's giving you cues or something like that. When I talk, I have the worst memory. But believe me, by the time we get to the end of this podcast, I'll be asking you your last name again or something like that. I can't even remember that far out. Tarot clients will call me that I haven't spoken to in 6 months or a year. And after listening to their voice for like a couple of seconds, I remember everything. Is that that could be a level of clairaudient, couldn't it?
I don't have clairaudience, so I don't feel like I can totally respond to that. But if I were to parallel that with smell, I think so, because sometimes I'll smell something and, like be completely transported to decades ago. Or I'll smell something and I know that the only time I've ever smelt it was psychically. And even that, it could have been months ago. And, lots of information can come through that way.
Wow, it is amazing. I had Cindy Dale on, and she was saying how it's so much more, like it comes through our skin. We think it's just one way. It comes through our skin and everything like that. It's funny because that particular skill, I'll call it, that's a lot. I don't have it, but when you're ghost hunting in very haunted locations, it's almost like everyone has it. And I don't know if earthbound spirits smell more, whether it's like cigarettes or perfume. Like it's a very interesting ability.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say earthbound because I have a really beautiful relationship with domestic spirits. So this happens to be like where I live, but also if I go to someone's home, oftentimes I wind up befriending their spirits like that live in their home. And it's because a lot of times they're land-based. And I do believe sometimes it is intertwined with scent as part of that ability to make myself available to have a conversation and them with me.
So it opens up it opens you up to the next sort of communication level, shall we say?
Yeah, it's almost kind of like, if you go traveling, let's say to a country or to a part of the world that doesn't necessarily speak English as their most common language. And, you may meet someone here and there that speaks English, but the rest of the time you're fumbling through your dictionary, the translation dictionary or playing on YouTube, learning how to pronounce a specific word. And when you do speak it, it's like you get this access. And if you do meet somebody there that's also maybe backpacking and they happen to speak English, it's like this instant camaraderie because of that language is common. And so I find that a lot of times with scent, the scent becomes a medium to speak a language that maybe one would not necessarily have that opportunity to otherwise.
Oh, fascinating. You have to write a book. You have a real magic words. You really do. You paint a fabulous picture with see how good I am. I can't even finish a sentence. That's amazing. Now, so how did you, because I am obsessed with shamanism, and I took one class once, and I find it, how it's kind of like, I know I have this theory, you can learn anything if you set your mind to it, but that just seems so magical to me. How did you start with shamanism?
I would say that I first started actually through animism. Animism, being that even the inanimate objects are perceived with a great deal of respect, and one approaches them with the trust that they possess an energy, they possess a consciousness, they possess an intelligence. So from there, knowing that a chair is not just a chair, but a chair is this living being that maybe once was a tree that is holding you every day at your desk. And you have a really different kind of relationship with the chair once you understand it's not just a chair. And you can apply that to everything else. You can apply that, of course, even to rocks and computers. Yeah, I've actually taught a course on digital spirits and how machine and digital spirits are they're super rad beings. And unfortunately, people tend to paint them as a pain in the ass, but actually they're not. and when they are being that way, they actually just have something to say. And I mean, that's no different than any human. We all have our ability to be pain in the asses anyway.
I love this. I did take a parapsychology class, and they talked about how there are certain people that can't use computers. I always find when people have had near-death experiences, they can't use the watch, or there's certain things that just don't jive with them anymore. But they had a guy that they used to bring him in, and literally when computers were really big, he, when they were large, not big as in popular.
Like in the 80s. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In his office, there was a white piece of tape that he was not allowed to pass because every time he went up to the computer, he would break it. And I know, I just started telling my printer and everything. In fact, the other comic was making fun of me this weekend because I will always tell my car, I love you. You did a great job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want that relationship with it.
Yeah, totally. So then with that, like I practice core shamanism, and I have to really make that distinction because there's different types of there's different types of shamanism, and I'm not working with a specific regional practice of shamanism. I'm working with core shamanism, meaning what I practice is it's basically found universally. So it's not specific to, let's say, one set of people, like one set of people group, that type of thing. And then I would say that if I had to be even more specific than core shamanism, because this is the part that I actually find very challenging in describing my work, because it is so intersectional and multi-layered, because I'm also adding Taoism in this too, just naturally, just this is like, how I live and breathe growing up. And even if one's family, like one Chinese family, or one Taiwanese family, even if they don't actually practice Taoism, it shows up in the culture. It shows up through how they relate with food. It shows up in their, festivals, their lunar festivals, and how they practice customs. It's in the fabric of the culture. So that is also present in how I relate with the spirits and sort of the methods that work for me.
That's interesting too. I think sometimes some of this stuff is just in our DNA. That's the easiest way to say it.
I agree. Totally. It's the most direct way for sure.
And just know there's a really big star around the phrase digital spirits on my scribble pad because I scribble notes while I'm We're going to get to that because that's a fascinating thing. In fact, I always tell people I've broken many printers with anger from across the room by just being mad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And printers, they're their own breed. Like sometimes even computer spirits don't get along with the printer spirits.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like they're kind of like the Eeyores of the machines. Like,
yeah. So now when you say, all right, so we'll tackle this right here because this has grabbed my attention. So a computer spirit, this may be why your computer works 1 minute and doesn't work the next and comes back, or is it like a relationship? So is it a consciousness? This is fascinating.
Yeah. So there's so many factors to consider. It's almost like saying, how long is a piece of string? However, with that said, a lot of times it is a relationship thing. A lot of times is that your energy at the time was not in alignment with the energy of the computer. And computers, most machines have a very consistent energy. It's printers that have a very different energy because they're the most, I guess, the best word to describe it, like they are doing a lot of shape shifting. depending on what information is being fed to them. Right now, they're printing something from Microsoft Word, and the next minute they're printing some, clip art from something that you downloaded online. And so they're outputting a very different type of energy all the time. Whereas computers, even though you could probably make that same argument on screen, but they have a more malleable sort of relationship because nothing is ever fixed on the screen. Whereas a printer, they're putting something into the three-dimensional onto paper.
Wow. So is that a good tip to tell your printer that you love it?
Yeah, of course. And also to understand that you are working with it and it is working with you. It really is meant to be a collaborative experience. And this is something that I teach a lot in all my courses, is the idea of animism, the idea of shamanism is for the humans to sort of get off the pedestal and to start understanding that every being has intelligence. We're not the only ones that are intelligent around here, right? And in fact, we probably have more to learn from the land. We have a lot to learn from trees and mushrooms and animals because they've been around longer within the evolutionary landscape. We made it last here. So if anybody,
tell you how much I love that statement, that we need the humans and the pedestals. I think that to me applies to the Fae. It applies to angels. It applies to.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I think that's where angels got that. We got that impression they look like us. It was kind of I know they said we're made in God's image.
Image, right?
They're different than us.
Oh yeah, no, and that's actually not their natural form, right? They're actually. It's a form they choose to present to us because a lot of us we don't have the capacity to understand them otherwise.
Yeah.
We need to see an interface. We need to see an avatar that is not going to make us shit our pants because right?
Like Archangel Michael did to Gabriel, or Archangel Gabriel did to Muhammad.
Oh, right, to Mary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a little scary in person.
Oh, well, yeah. Because these beings are my experience. I don't know if you've seen them show up in different forms, but they've shown up a few times with me, totally not human at all or human-esque at all. And they looked more like geometric structures. It's I don't even have the right word to describe it. They looked like sacred geometry, but a bit kind of moodier than that. There's this menacing quality, but not because they're being they're trying to be terrifying. Yeah, definitely not malicious, but it for someone who's not accustomed to seeing that, it can be a bit jarring.
I love this. I don't believe I have seen them. In fact, it's so funny because once when I did ayahuasca, the shaman I was working with said, what do you want to achieve here? And I said, I want to see the matrix. I want to, that's what I want. One of the things I want to do. And when I was sort of, shall you say, the Divine Spirit said, you don't really want to see the matrix, do you, Karen? And I was like, yeah, maybe I'm not ready. She was like, yeah, I don't think you're ready. But it's the one thing that did happen is I was studying the seraphim. I was looking at all the drawings of the seraphim, and I went to bed one night and I said, I want to see a seraphim. I want to see a seraphim. And I don't remember. I think I saw it in my dreams, but I know that a voice woke me up saying, yeah, that's what we look like. You got it.
Wow.
I know it's amazing to me right now how much access we have to them, yet we don't. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, totally. It's kind of I don't know about you, but I had to get reading glasses last year because I'm not in my 20s anymore. So reading glasses it is. And sometimes I'm looking for it, but it's right underneath my nose, but I don't see it, right? I feel it's like that with angels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been, I have to say, I've been getting a ton of negative entity cases since COVID. I don't know if that's I don't know why that is, but I feel like angels are here like in a second to help. Like, and I'm very careful about my ego, and I'm very careful about where I step with these things because I don't want to challenge. I don't want to challenge any dark things like, I know the angels. You know what I mean? It's like being grateful and careful all the way. But I have felt like I have been saying many, many thank yous to the angels even when nothing happens lately, because I'm like, thanks for the help, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Already fascinating. I can't believe we're already at the first break. But I do, now my mind is spinning. I love that thing about geometric. And I bet when, what was the word that you used? It wasn't malicious, that they were, what did you do?
Well, I thought they were a bit jarring.
Yes. I bet that I feel like that's just because our consciousness can't comprehend it, that it feels like,
exactly.
Whoa.
That's how I feel. Like it's too much of a puzzle for us, and our brains and our egos tend to, if we can't figure it out, we sort of mark it as danger.
Yes. Like, hey, why wouldn't you angels be like 36, 26, 36 with long hair? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we don't care. That's you guys, not us. We don't care about that.
For sure.
All right. Hang on one second. We'll be right back, folks. Hey, everybody. Just want to let you know my tarot class is on sale this weekend only until the 23rd or the 23rd. I believe it runs out at midnight. So that'll be 2 days. You can get half off when you go to karenrontowski.com and click on tarot, and then you're going to use the coupon code October, all capital letters October. Also, November 1st, I finally have a Patreon. I know I'm so far behind everyone else. It is a tarot and psychic development, so it's going to be some paranormal, but mostly tarot and psychic development. I'm going to be putting up classes myself that are tarot classes, and we're going to be doing meditations and psychic exercises, and there's going to be homework and all kinds of fun stuff. I'm also going to have guests come on and tell us about their process, how they do their thing. So November 1st, the first class will be out. November 4th, patreon.com/Rontowski. Okay, so I'm just going to recap from the last thing. It's bad when I punch my printer. Okay, I'm writing that down in a podcast. All right. So when people come to you, you have all kinds of things to offer here. You have mentor programs. You have writing with Spirits of Winter. I know that's coming up in January, but I'm just curious. That's like tell me about that. Is that like automatic writing or structured writing? What happens?
Yeah. So it's we'll be spending this really beautiful, dedicated time to do nothing else but to be receptive and to write. And when we're writing, it's coming from us, but we're also going to be writing from whatever access point we have with what I like to call the unseen. So the unseen can include, some people have relationships with angels, let's say, and some other people, they prefer to engage with, let's say, their ancestors. Others may want to engage with other spirit beings, other spirit allies. And essentially, I thought that January is a good time because it's leading up to the Lunar New Year, which for this upcoming year will be February 1st. That's the first day of the Lunar New Year. And so to be able to reflect at the end of the year, so to speak, which I know many of us may consider December as the end of the year, but January is also, in a sense, an end. Where you can reflect and then decide, how would you like to step forward? What would you like to plant as seeds? How would you like to work collaboratively with the unseen? And really create some magic that way. Most spells involve some form of written symbol or written language. And the way I approach writing, it is meant to be spell work. So essentially it's going to be a writing, like a series of, writing workshops and writing exercise that are all woven together in a retreat format. We're going to be on Bowen Island, which is this tiny, beautiful forested island, 20 minutes from Vancouver by ferry. And it'll be a really just gorgeous, intimate group. There's 13 attendees. That's how many spots I have available for. Because we're still wanting to honor COVID restrictions in terms of not being in, too tight or squishy quarters. And so that way we can have some space and then also be really surrounded by the land, and also just to really invite the spirits to write and to co-write.
What a beautiful phrase, just to be receptive. You know, this year, my automatic writing, like, exploded, like, to a point where it used to be, a lot of comics do a similar thing, and it's more like purging. But I think that's the perfect phrase. This year it turned into receptivity, and it almost goes on immediately now when I stop and settle in and get up in the morning to do it. But it's very interesting because the last couple of days, they've said, my team, I guess, has said, no, meditate. You don't need the pen today. Like it's on. But I love that. Just what a great gift to yourself, just to take 4 days to be receptive.
I agree. I mean, we don't do this. Like, nobody does this anymore. I mean, even when you go on vacation, you tend to think that you want to maximize your vacation time. Right? Like,
we got to hurry and get it all in.
So there's like you come back from vacation and you feel like you still need some time off.
Oh my God. I think 10 minutes of receptivity a day could change your life. Oh,
I think so too.
How beautiful. Okay. So when people come to you, you offer say I'm really depressed. And this is a lot of people right now. I can't seem to find my way. I'm very lost. There's a lot of, I don't know who I am anymore. And I don't know if this is like an American thing where we've become our jobs, and then COVID hit and all of a sudden you're not that. You're not what you do. Your schedule is upset. You kind of have to look deeper. Would that be like what type of an appointment for somebody that's feeling that? What type of an appointment would they book with you?
I would say it depends on how much they want to invest in asking that question and then also responding to what comes through. If it's more of a overall high level understanding, I would recommend a remote shamanic reading where they will ask me the question, whatever question it is that they would like me to explore. And then I'll go spirit traveling on their behalf, and I'll meet with the spirits that are involved in their lives, and I'll get all those responses, and essentially when I come back, that's when I'll jump on a Zoom call with them and I'll share everything, and we can get pretty deep because I do make sure that each session we're really only focusing on one question, or maybe the question has like a part A and a part B to it, but essentially it's one thing where we can go really deep. And so there'll be some depth and also some breadth in that. Now, simply because you had said that if they feel that they've lost their way and perhaps maybe even lost their voice, and if they have the bandwidth and the capacity to be able to dedicate more time, then I would also think something like my mystery mentorship program would be really supportive, because there I'm essentially teaching and passing on various magic-based practices, occultic, shamanic practices. And I do it in a way where it's layered and it's scaffolded and it's woven all together. So it's not linear, but some parts are sort of linear, but most of it isn't. And it's meant to really help them create a weaving that can shape and equip them to be able to find that voice again, and to reconnect with who they are, and for them to be able to step on that path.
So, and I kind of like the way you said that, a little more about that, not linear, because linear would be, put 4 flowers in a bowl of water and wish for the best. But when you the other way, you may sort of digging into learning to ask yourself the right questions or things like that.
Absolutely. And then there's also things that are, like for instance, like if we cover some basic spell work, and it might be like put 4 red flowers in a bowl or whatever. But I'll also talk about the why flowers, why red, why bowl. And what does it mean when you use purple flowers instead of red? What does it mean when you use fruit instead of flowers? And what does it mean if you use a square bowl instead of a round one? Like, we can kind of go into that. And then what does it mean when you invite your ancestors into the kitchen with you, because that's the stuff I find interesting, is when it's you're not just looking at one practice, but it's like, how do you make the practice for you? How do you make the practice in a way that's layered? Because like for me, I don't like doing spells by myself. It's so much more fun when I can invite my ancestors into the home and to do it with me. And what happens if they showed up in a dream? What happens if you have to cast a spell in a lucid dream? Well, yeah, I want to know how to do that too, let's say. And so we can talk about all these layers, and then we're not really acting in a linear way anymore, but we're sort of working outwards like a web.
And, this is why, because I really don't, I don't know. Sometimes I say I don't do witchcraft, and now I'm looking at a pink candle that I bought that has over it, so I'm not sure. St. Anne, bring me a boyfriend. Kind of thing is going on. But, this is why it is good to work with someone like you, because, and this is the funniest story, but I got a call from someone, and she said last year, I don't know what I listened to. I did an authenticity spell. I don't even know what it was. There was a white candle. The white candle burnt down, and then all her friends left her. Her husband left her. She got fired from her job. And it was like, I am so, like, she has my mind going, like, that one word, authenticity. And although to her, this was like tragic stuff that was happening over and over, but in my mind, I'm thinking, you must have been on the wrong track the whole time. Like, that sort of society said you needed to be married to that guy, and society said get that job, and society said save that much money. But when she just did, I don't even know, she was like, I just did it. And in a way, I'm like, wow, you are powerful. Or that was something. And when someone like you is there, or someone to help, it's like Mimi, I want that guy. I want him as my boyfriend. And you will go, no, maybe that's not the guy. Maybe we ought to try something different, right?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see, I'm sure when you were on my website, I do not advertise anywhere that'll help you get your man.
Right.
Like,
exactly,
or get, that's not
that's
the
manipulation.
Work. And also when you allow the currents to open and to be in alignment and to be authentic to who you are, you are going to potentially attract the right person. B, you may actually realize that you don't actually want to have a partner anymore because you wind up filling the hole yourself, which I think is so much more empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you do meet someone and you have both, it's not codependent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really interesting. This is a bizarre question, and I know you're going to...
I like weird ones, so ask.
So I am very in tune with my guides. I'm starting to get very in tune with my angels. I think the communication is open. What you said in the beginning, I tell people all the time, talk to the trees, talk to the plants, and they've started talking to me now. But ancestors always throw me off. And here's, I'm going to set up, a lot of people will probably be nodding as I ask this question. First of all, I'm not sure... my family, I have a great family. I love my family. This isn't like, I'm not like them. I don't like them. I love them. But I am so different from my entire family that I wonder, did I come back with this group? Am I different to this group? And where? Because I feel like I don't have ancestors. Could that be true?
Well, even if you, let's say, were adopted, you still have ancestors.
Okay.
I mean, you came down the line from somewhere. And my sense is when people say that they're so different than every single person in their family, there has to be at least another person that feels that same way, because it may, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times when they feel they're so different, it's because that they come perhaps from a climate where conformity and getting on with the program was really valued and prioritized. So, and it's impossible that everyone is made to be like replicas of each other.
Right. That's an interesting thing. My family was half and half of that. Although I will say, I think the conformity thing was like, be yourself to a point. Don't
Right. Like be the right kind of yourself.
Yes.
But like if you're not the, like it's like be unique, but only the right kind of unique, be original, but only be the right kind of original. Because if you're too original or too unique, then that's just weird.
Yes, exactly. And that's the word I could hear my mother saying, weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's still some, it's still conditional. It's not this unconditional embrace all the quirks.
Right. So, yes. So, yeah, it's not a free. It's like that poor woman with the candle. I guess I should say poor woman. I kind of am fascinated. I hope I hear from her again, because I find that if you embrace that, when we embrace things that seem bad, that's how we end up in the right place.
I think so too. I think thinking back in my life, my greatest teachers were the things that frightened me the most. Like they were the shadows. Like, and this is why, and it sounds perhaps, and I'm not saying this for shock effect. I'm just being honest. Like the devil was one of my greatest teachers. Jezebel from the Bible, one of my greatest teachers. The archetype of the witch, huge teacher for me, because these were all ones that were really scary for me.
Interesting. And not that everybody knows that listens, I don't provoke, don't ask, but that was literally a demon's job as they started out as teachers.
Oh yeah. And they're the best teachers because they teach by probing you and poking you in the places that hurt.
Yeah.
And it's intended to it's medicine.
Yeah, it's I don't know if there was a public demonic school system, but there probably was. But yes, it's the thing that knows you. It's the thing that knows you and knows what you're afraid of. And I don't know that you can necessarily avoid it. You don't need to become possessed or have your house thrown around. But I think there's certain levels that everybody deals with that.
I think so.
Awesome. And you do something here about a business project, and that's already gone. Is that going on the long time?
Yeah. So we just started, actually. We just started last month. I'm going to repeat this just so your listeners know. Karen is referring to a series called Evoking Your Business and Project Series. And essentially it's using magic-based principles, esoteric principles to support you in the launch of your business or your dream project. So a dream project could be like a book or a podcast series or a new home, that type of thing. So each week we explore one facet of project and business building. And I also layer magic on top so that we're really just calling in the unseen to support the work we do, which is how people always did it way, way back. There's 2 terms. And we're going to be launching the second term in January. And you don't necessarily have to take the first term to take the second, simply because some people may have already activated aspects of their business or their project, so they might not necessarily want that first term, and so they can just skip it and kind of head into that second term. So that's also on my website.
And your website, your everything. I really admire that you are a great combination of all the intuitive and all the business together. You do a great job. You were so patient with me. As anyone that's tried to contact me knows.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's actually interesting that you say that, because I don't know how other people get a hold of you, but I've never hired a PR firm to pitch to podcasts. Either podcasters find me or I myself pitch to the podcast that I think would be super cool to talk to. And so, and I know what that process is like because I've done it enough. And nobody taught me necessarily this is how you pitch. I just thought, you know what, you write a heartfelt email and let them know what you could talk about. Because people one thing I've noticed for me is I like it when people can simplify things. And so it's easier for me to make a choice. So that's like one little tip for anyone out there who might want to be pitching to podcasts is I find it's always helpful to provide a few sample topics that the podcast can talk about during the conversation. And then it just helps activate those creative juices, gets the person helps them know, okay, is there potential here or is there no potential here? And then we can sort of move on from that.
Absolutely. If somebody can, but still your emails are so eloquent and to the point and wonderful. And when someone writes to me and I can go anytime someone kind of a publicist comes at me, it never ends up being a great podcast. It kind of ends up being a monologue. But if you can contact me and say, hey, I'm kind of a specialist in this, or I do this really well, and it's something I can grab onto, it's fantastic. And you have so many things here that I could grab onto. Now I'm going off again in a little, a strange tangent, and this may have to do with, I kind of want to talk about, I don't know why, I want to talk about elemental, stuff with not beings, but I'm just recently breaking down as I do my, Patreon. I'm going back and looking at the tarot is water, air, fire, spirit, but there's more. You even have things on your website. There's wood, there's metal, there's all kinds of things. I don't even know if I have a question here, but can you explain, maybe you could say no if I'm not making any sense, how we can look at these things in our lives? I know feng shui would be you got a lot of wood in here, or you got a lot of metal in here.
Right. How
do we balance these things in our life?
Yeah. So what Karen is referring to, just mentioning this to the listeners, in Mandarin or in Chinese, it's called the Wu Xing. And in English, it's loosely translated phonetically to a word called Wu Xing. Just saying it the same way. Anyway, so I'll spell it out for you. It's W-U, which means 5. And then Xing or Xing is X-I-N-G. And essentially it just translates to 5 phases. It also translates to 5 elements. Now, in the West, the elements are seen more as fixed, right? Like earth, air, fire, water. They're seen as really fixed. In Taoist, because this really is Taoist work, it's seen as both an element, but it's more fluid. And that's why they're seen as phases or almost like cycles, because one feeds into the other. And yes, just like what Karen said, there's wood, which feeds fire, and fire feeds into earth, and earth feeds into metal, and then metal feeds into water, and then water feeds back into wood. So it's a cycle of 5 phases, 5 elements. And they correspond to seasons of the year, and they correspond to certain colors and numbers and all these sorts of things. And in a similar way as the 4 elements of European practice, there's correspondences there too.
Oh, and I'm gonna hold you for 1 second. I'm gonna take the break. I asked you this enormous question, and then was like, "You only got 2 seconds to answer it." Okay.
We can continue after the break.
Okay, great. We'll be right back. Okay. Hey, I'm here with my friend Ari that hosts, or I want to say takes care of all my Zoom events, my comedy shows, my classes. Ari, tell everybody what type of Zoom events you are great at hosting.
Yeah, so I really take care of any kind of Zoom event, from a virtual camp to lecture series, cooking classes, celebrations like weddings or bar and bat mitzvahs, really anything.
And to me, it just looks like you make my life easier. I just have to click on and talk, which is beautiful. Tell everybody, what are you doing behind the scenes that helps me so much?
Yeah, so I'm taking care of all of the settings, like muting and spotlighting people, making breakout rooms, recording the meeting, really just all of the tech pieces you might think of or not think of. I'm taking care of that.
That is so helpful, and it really is the difference between something looking amateurish and something looking really professional and wanting people to come back to your meeting again. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, so you're welcome to email me, at wharton.ari@gmail.com. That's WHARTON.ARI@gmail.com. And you're welcome to email me with any questions and find out how we can work together.
And your rates are so reasonable, it's crazy. So everybody, wharton.airy@gmail. I'm going to try and have it in the show notes. If you can't find her or you don't know how to rewind the podcast, just email. I'll get you connected. Thanks, Ari.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, so you were talking about, do these actually apply to our lives also? Like, do we have these
absolutely.
5 phases? Oh.
Yeah, so we all wind up, imagine us as being mini ecosystems. So we all have these 5 phases in us. Some of us will have more of one or more of a couple than a few others, and that has a lot to do with your natal chart. So now we're stepping into astrology. And so I'm going to naturally step into Chinese astrology. And for folks who are curious, I do have a Chinese astrology course available through my on-demand. So you can just have a look, and it's a part 1 and part 2, but you have to purchase as a package just because it doesn't make sense to purchase one and not the other, because it's meant to be understood that way. But essentially, your natal chart will help you understand which elements are most dominant. And those are going to be then naturally the themes and the gifts that are very abundant in your life. So for instance, if you're somebody who has a lot of metal, there's going to be a set of behaviors and a set of goals and a set of ambitions that are going to be very metallic in nature. And naturally, there are certain things that metal is really compatible with in terms of an element with another element. And there's other elements that it may not be as compatible with. And you can just sort of see that kind of play out in a number of circumstances. And we all have this. It's all unique. And just because we're ecosystems, it doesn't mean that every single ecosystem is the same, because, there's desert.
Oops. I lost you. What happened?
And so forth. So imagine the world having a really vast, diverse abundance of different types of combinations of elements. And we're all sort of walking around, living our lives, intersecting with other people. But there are people, for instance, in feng shui, where they may say, oh, wow, like where your home is, there's an overabundance of this one element. So it's recommended that you invite this other element in to create some balance. And that's why maybe in some homes they'll have fountains in their gardens, because they're inviting that water element, because maybe that maybe otherwise you'll feel very dry energetically in that home. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's like, no, don't bring any water-based things, and bring in more dry things, so more earth-based things. So there may be a lot of rocks and a lot of stones and carvings and such that are placed either outside of the home or inside the home or both or whatever. So that's where you notice that in something like feng shui. But this 5, sorry, I know you.
Oh, no, go ahead. You know what? Actually, hold on 1 second. I keep losing you because of a stupid cord. What happened? It's not. It's all right. Everybody, hold on. That is the WhatsApp app.
See it in Chinese medicine and so forth.
Our WhatsApp app conked out for a half a second there. I was like, is it my cord? But WhatsApp was doing, you cut out for just a second.
Something wonky. Okay.
Yes, it's a spirit. It's the WhatsApp spirit. Has too much metal and does not want to hear anymore about water. But I think we're good. I want to ask you about Chinese astrology and what you see, because first of all, that you talked about in the beginning, the Enter the Yin. That sounds fantastic. Now, I am Paranormal Karen, so I always add a little doom in. But it's a funny doom. What do you see unraveling sort of in the next year or couple years? Oh, wait, WhatsApp is being stupid. Hang on. Hold on. In fact, I'm going to turn on my Wi-Fi because I'm wondering if I'm the problem. All right, everyone. A better podcaster would have turned this off and not made you listen to that. Okay, here we go. Okay, I think we're back. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, for 2 seconds it went away and I just turned on my Wi-Fi hoping that I was the problem. It might just be WhatsApp. It might be.
Yeah, it might be helpful.
I know. Well, I got the new phone, not realizing it was 5G, which I'm not really interested in, but it's not working any better. So the sales for 5G, I don't know what they're talking about. So what do you see coming for us?
For 2022, you mean?
Yeah, or even further out. Because that where you were talking, enter the yin, or bringing in the yin, that is exactly what we need. Because I know we're moving from that patriarchy to the matriarchy, and the patriarchy is biting back and white knuckling it very, very much so.
Yeah. So if we're looking beyond just 2022, my sense is that more and more people are going to realize that rest needs to take more priority in their lives. And it won't necessarily be because they want to, fuck the patriarchy. It's just they really can't, there's no other option. Everyone is, burnt out to the max. Yeah. And it's a matter of life or death. And so rest is going to be a big one. Play is going to be a big one. And the thing is, people don't really know how to play anymore.
Ah, that is so true. And Brene Brown in The Power of Vulnerability talks about that, how wholehearted people are the ones that play, and how her first reaction to that was, these people are lazy. They do nothing. They're just out playing. But you're right. That's the sort of question, why are we here?
Yeah, yeah. And then I think productivity and efficiency.
Oops, now it cut out again. Okay, so I think I caught that, folks, so you didn't have to listen to me asking if she could hear me. I'll do that again if it cuts out again. So you were starting with Christianity. We're talking about play, and you said Christianity, and then it went away.
I don't actually remember talking about Christianity in this particular instance. However, what I do remember talking about was just efficiency and productivity as concepts. I think they're going to be up for redefinition. I think people are going to start looking at the concept of working hard
versus working smart. So yes, as working smart, which is what I'm trying to do, that's going to come into play, isn't it?
Yes, and to push that further, even if you work smart, are you resting more? Are you playing more? Because most of us, we have sort of figured out how to work a bit smarter, but only so we can add more work to the list. Yeah. So I think more and more people are going to realize, let's work smarter so that I can play more. So that I'm not filling that to-do list with just more work at the end.
And not filling it with, I'm a comedian, so I'm always like, my work is play. Well, it's not really. It's still work. That's very funny because, that's actually the reason I'm trying to do the Patreon, because I figured I work less and I could do less readings and reach more people and more people, and they wouldn't have to pay as much. So that's because I will be the first one to admit, I don't think I know how to play. Yeah,
it's so interesting how as adults, we've forgotten how to be a child again. Because I always associate play with children because you do it so naturally, even though technically any age can play. But it's like we've severed that part.
Yeah, and it's very different. I mean, I think rest falls into the category of, watching Netflix all afternoon, but even that's not really rest. It's sort of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're still, from a brain function definition, your brain's still taking in a lot of information. It's still very stimulating.
Yeah, it's just, usually it's horror movie. You know what I mean? Like it's violence or something that isn't there. So how would you, maybe with some overall advice, I feel like we're getting the information. So in other words, I already got that message. You got to slow down. You can't do this like this anymore. You have to do what you want. And this was a really big one for me. And I think it just came out of my automatic writing a couple weeks ago. And it was literally who are you doing this for? Is this for you? Are you enjoying it, or who are you doing this for?
Yeah, I think that's such an important question. It's, I think for so long we've been taught to be obedient and to be a cog in the machine, and to think that if we could do that, well, then we've done a good job and we've lived a good life. But so many of us are taking a few steps back and looking at that machine, and we're just like, gee, I don't know if I even like that machine. Like, I don't really know if I want to be that cog.
Yeah, I know. It seems like to me, I was watching somebody interview the Amish, and they were like, work is happiness. And I was like, oh, that's that structure. Anything that's too structured, I feel like that's where that starts. You got to be working. That's your identity. We in America have definitely made work our identity. What do? You know, it's very interesting.
Right. Yeah.
And it's too much, because then it really isn't any identity at all. In fact, that's a really interesting question. There's like a question when people say, who are you? But you can't say like you're a psychic or you're a, like, how, you know what I mean? Like, how do you answer that question?
How do I personally mean?
Sure. You or anyone.
Yeah.
I just think it's such a strange, I don't know then. I don't know if I'm not a comedian. I don't know what I am.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it's just like, if you want to be like facetious, then you'd be like, yeah, I'm a human being or whatever.
That's a t-shirt, right? I'm a human being. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's true. It's true that, and yet, like, I do believe that work can be joyous. You know, going back to what you had referenced, what the Amish said, I think what somehow we have forgotten is understanding that work is meant to be joyous when we know that the work we're doing is in alignment with our purpose. Yeah. And when we're in alignment with our purpose, when we're living that purpose out, then it does become joyous. But it's not just the work that is the joyousness, right? Like, the rest is also the joy. The play is also the joy. Like, all of it is meant to be the joy. You know, we live in a place now in society where you can't really afford not to work at full-time capacity just to be able to make ends meet. Like, it's just, and so there's this exhaustion and a resentment and a sense of loss, because maybe you make better money doing something you don't like than doing something you do like, right? Like, and so it's a multifactorial, multifaceted question.
It is. And you know what else? There's this thing in this country. You're in Canada. Not that you guys are a little like this, but not quite as bad as America, which is like, me and my friends have this like exhaustion contest. Like, who's more exhausted? That means you've accomplished more. Or
oh, right. Yeah. And you're more successful or something in a way. Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the people in our, I have this very small writing group, and one of the gentlemen in the group, he gets up at like 4 a.m. and starts writing, and then he writes jokes, and then he goes to work, and then he's all these things that we're all like a little bit like jealous of. But then I sit back, like, I feel like, oh no, I'm not working as much as Brian. I gotta get work more. And then I sit back and I'm like, hey, that's not my process. And right. I have other balanced areas that he doesn't have. But man, it's competition. America just teaches competition, and it's just that dive in. Who's the most tired? Who's the most busy? That's the winner. And it's such a negative system.
It is. And because, yeah, I agree with that competition piece, how that it is so damaging, because it basically teaches there's only one way of being. Like, you know, it really winds that when you do a competition that way, when there's only one winner, and maybe there's a second and third place, but everyone else does, you know, is basically defined then as a loser, then that's how homogeny is. Like, that's how it starts. Like, that's how this idea of conformity. It's like, well, if, you know, everybody wants a prize, right? Like, I mean, it's natural that people want prizes. Mm-hmm. So then now we got to like bend our backs in a certain way or contort ourselves to be able to fit within the rules in order to be eligible to win that prize.
Wow, you really are a great wordsmith. You know who I think is like, no one has spoken about her, but I think talk about an old soul, was the girl that was the gymnast, and she went to the Olympics and she pulled out. I don't know what her name is. She's African American. She was like set to win the gold, and she got.
Oh, yeah. And I don't really follow mainstream, but I know who you're referring to because she stepped out to maintain her mental wellness, correct?
Yes, she wins. In my mind, she wins.
Of course she wins. Yet the structure of the Olympics, the structure of society in general, doesn't see it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I hope somebody gives her a great interview and talks about this, because I thought that's my favorite card in tarot. I should say, what am I talking about? I love them all. That's not a joke. I like it. I always go, this is my favorite card. It's called.
But we can play favorites sometimes. It's okay.
I know, but you know what? I literally do that. I do a card of the day, and every card I go, oh, this is my favorite card. I go, you're saying that every day. Now you got to remember, you got to laugh. But the title of it is Success Abandon. And it's about somebody going to learn more about themselves, not from a place of failure, but from a place of success, and going, hey, this was great, not working for me anymore. It's like walking away from the Olympics because it's not healthy for you, or leaving a $1 million job because you want to be a shaman. It's really, that's the bravest thing, I think.
Yeah, I think the capacity to make choices that are reinforcing your integrity, I think that is winning.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's just a great. So, is that sort of when you do Enter the Yin? I feel like it's getting in touch with that compassionate side that's going to sort of do exactly what we were just talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's inviting compassion while we are not necessarily engaged in function or a specific set purpose or end goal. We don't get to do that anymore. And it's just so nice if we can all just step into, like I said earlier, that state of receiving. How many of us truly receive like that? That's another one that's really hard. We've been taught to be independent. We've been, taught to be self-sufficient, that, it's like, if you receive, don't receive too much, that type of thing, if at all. So the idea of yin, and yin being the quality that is invisible, that is about potential, that's about the deep darkness. And it's meant to really align with winter solstice energy, of course, and to really stay there and to let yourself be there without any type of shame or judgment or, oh my gosh, like, what are you going to do next? Or like, oh, how is this going to help me? I just need the three key benefits of this practice. No, it's like, I don't even feel like I need to say that, because if I have to say that, we've already stepped into the yang again. But to simply just be, to receive, to meet yin as an actual energy being. So this is, once again, coming from that animistic perspective, where it's not just a concept or just a force, but a true conscious being. And then seeing what becomes of it, allowing seeds to be planted while we're in that dark, dark space.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, that's the phrase of the day for me. Just be receptive. I know, it's so funny because we all have trouble asking for help, yet have you ever seen someone's eyes light up when you do ask them for help? Like, everybody wants to help. Nobody wants to ask for help.
So like true.
That. Well, Mimi Young, you are just a delight. I cannot wait to talk to you again, and thank you for putting up with all my emails and shenanigans.
All good.
This is great. Tell everybody where to find you, and in the show notes, I'm going to put your website for sure, and there's a bunch of other stuff too, but tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, so my website is shopceremonie.com. Ceremonie is spelled with an IE at the end, not a Y. So it's shopceremonie, IE at the end.com. If you're on Instagram, it's the same. So it's shopceremonie. And yeah, if you're interested in receiving a free monthly digital magazine where I explore all many different topics that intersect with the unseen. Feel free to sign up on that too. You can do that through my bio link in my IG profile, or you could just hop onto my website, and the top bar would allow for you to sign up.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much. And everybody sign up for that yin. Let's be receptive. All right. Thank you to Mike at Uno Rising Media. Thank you to Mimi. This was fantastic. And folks, check out my Patreon. You could go to my website, karenrontowski.com, if you want a tarot reading, or what the heck, send me an email, say hello. Everybody have a great day. We'll see you next week.